Many of us have probably heard stories of a headless rider roaming the night, spreading fear and death to all who cross his path. While versions of the Headless Horseman exist in various cultures, today's focus is on one of the most chilling of them all, the Dullahan, a spirit from Irish folklore. The Dullahan is part of the rich tradition of supernatural entities in Celtic mythology, which often includes beings referred to as fairies. But don't think of Tinker Bell or the delicate figures having magical tea parties at the end of the garden. In this context, fairy refers to all manner of otherworldly creatures in European folklore. Beings tied to the mystical, the dangerous, and in the case of the Dullahan, death itself. Welcome to the mysteries of mythology, the Dullahan. The Dullahan is one of the most recognizable and feared figures in Irish folklore. This headless horseman isn't out to get you or to drag your soul to hell, like later depictions. Though seeing him means that your time on this plane is at an end, it won't be at his hands that you meet the Reaper. The Dullahan is a harbinger of death, a messenger who only appears when someone is destined to die. He rides a powerful black horse, sometimes also headless, and in some versions he is pulling a dark carriage with wheels made of human leg bones. No gate can keep him out and no door can stop him. He wields a whip made from a human spine, which he can use to blind anyone who dares look at him. Some legends even claim he throws basins of blood in the faces of those who watch him pass. He only speaks once during his grim rides, and that's to call the name of the person who is about to die. Once the Dullahan speaks your name, there is no escape. Your fate is sealed. But for all his power, the Dullahan has one weakness: gold. It's said that if gold is thrown in his path, he will stop and turn away. This small but critical detail has made many people believe that carrying a piece of gold could protect them from the Dullahan's deadly visit. It's believed that the Dullahan's origins are deeply rooted in ancient Celtic traditions and may even be connected to the worship of the fertility god Crom Dubh. Crom Dubh, an old and powerful figure in Celtic mythology, was known to demand human sacrifices, particularly through decapitation. This gruesome practice was meant to appease the pagan gods and ensure good harvests and fertility. After the rise of Christianity in Ireland, the old sacrificial rituals were abandoned, but the memory of these dark practices lived on. Many believe the Dullahan is a twisted echo of Crom Dubh's terrifying legacy, a figure that still carries the mark of these ancient rituals. The Dullahan, with his decapitated head, is thought to be a reflection of the sacrificial decapitations once performed in Crom Dubh's name. It's as if the Dullahan continues the tradition of taking souls even after the gods of old have faded from memory. Celts also believed that the head was a vessel of the soul, and so the Headless Horseman with his headless horses were cursed beings, soulless, forced to eternally roam the earth. Much of what we know about the Dullahan comes from a single source. In 1825, Thomas Crofton Croker published Fairy Legends and Traditions of the South of Ireland, a collection that became a cornerstone for documenting Ireland's rich folklore. Croker's work was based on stories he gathered while traveling through the southern parts of Ireland. However, the collection wasn't without controversy. While creating the book, Croker lost part of his manuscript and had to rely on other writers to help complete it. Unfortunately, Croker didn't credit these contributors in the original publication, which caused a dispute, particularly with one writer, Thomas Keatley. In later editions, Croker removed the stories attributed to others, reducing the number of tales from 50 to 40. Despite these issues, the book was a success, and 4 of the remaining stories focused on the Dullahan. One of the most famous pieces from Croker's collection is a poem called The Death Coach. This poem vividly describes the eerie and chaotic arrival of a headless coach named Crom Dubh, driven by a decapitated coachman. The coach itself is horrific, with wheels made of dead men's thigh bones and skulls for lanterns. The hammercloth used to cover the carriage is made from rotting funeral poles, and the coach races through the countryside at terrifying speed. The poem captures the supernatural terror of the Dullahan and the inevitable death that follows in his wake. It's midnight, how gloomy and dark. By Jupiter, there's not a star. 'Tis fearful, 'tis awful, and hark! What sound is that comes from afar? Still rolling and rumbling, that sound makes nearer, a nearer approach. Do I tremble, or is it the ground? Lord, save us! What is it? A coach! A coach, but that coach has no head, and the horses are headless as it. Of the driver, the same may be said, and the passengers inside who sit. See the wheels, how they fly over the stones, in whirl, as the whippet goes crack. Their spokes are of dead men's thigh bones, and the pole is the spine of the back. The hammercloth's shabby display is appalled, rather mildewed by damps. And to light this strange coach on its way, 2 hollow skulls hang up for lamps. Perhaps the oddest of the stories is the Headless Horseman. One stormy night, a man named Charlie was riding through the dark Irish countryside. The rain came down in sheets, making it hard to see anything ahead. As he urged his horse forward, Charlie noticed something strange in the distance. A pale, glowing shape. When he got closer, his heart froze. It was the head of a horse, floating eerily above the road. Charlie could hardly believe his eyes, but as the creature drew nearer, he realized the horse body was following closely behind. And on the horse's body was a horseman, just as headless. The rider, dressed in all black, carried his own severed head under his arm. The head's eyes glowed faintly, and its twisted grin sent a chill down Charlie's spine. Despite his fear, Charlie tried to remain polite. "That's a fine horse you have," he said, though his voice trembled. The Dullahan glanced at Charlie with those glowing eyes. "You may say that with your own ugly mouth," the head rasped, the words cutting through the storm like a blade. Charlie, terrified, said nothing more, but the Dullahan, seeming to sense the young man's bravery in the face of such terror, offered him a challenge. "Will you race me?" the Dullahan asked, his voice filled with both a dark promise and a test of courage. Though shaking, Charlie knew there was only one answer. Refusing the Dullahan's challenge could be far worse than accepting it. So, he agreed, and the 2 riders set off. Charlie urged his horse forward, trying to keep pace with the supernatural speed of the Dullahan and his horse. But no matter how hard he pushed, he could not keep up. The race ended as quickly as it had begun, with the Dullahan victorious. But instead of taking Charlie's life, the Dullahan did something unexpected. He complimented the young man's bravery. "No one has dared race me since I broke my neck at the bottom of Kilcuma Hill many years ago," the Dullahan said. Then, in a surprising twist, the Dullahan promised that as long as Charlie remained brave and adventurous, the Headless Horseman would stay by his side, watching over him. The next day, when Charlie entered a local horse race, it seemed the Dullahan kept his word. Charlie won easily, and with it, a handsome reward. It seems the moral of the story is to be kind and courteous to others, even if they're headless. The Dullahan's legend has endured for centuries, not just because of its terrifying imagery, but because of what it represents: the inevitability of death. As a harbinger of death, The Dullahan reminds us that no one can escape their fate. His headless form, glowing eyes, and eerie rides through the night are all symbols of the fear and mystery that surround death. In the end, the Dullahan isn't just a creature from myth. He represents the ancient Celtic belief in the thin boundary between life and death, a belief that is still powerful today. His legend has survived for hundreds of years and continues to captivate modern audiences, from literature to films and video games. The Dullahan's last ride will always be a reminder that no matter how far we run or how well we hide, death will find us all. So the next time you hear the sound of pounding hooves on a dark, lonely night, remember the Dullahan and maybe keep a gold coin handy, just in case.